I love you. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. You're like, I'm taking you on the road. I never danced to my New York Times thing.
Oh! We can make it a thing.
I'm like, that's my, you know, as many of you know, Kendrick released an album today.
Yes! Shout out to hip hop.
Okay? I've been listening to it nonstop to prepare to be in the right mode to come in here. And he says, I deserve it all. And I was like, that's the right energy. That's the energy we need to have right now. It's the opposite of what they want us to have, but we have it. So I just wanted to start off by saying, like 4 hours ago, I wouldn't have been able to dance to you being New York Times bestseller, but I was like, no, I deserve it all.
Okay, just
Let's
5 seconds.
go there. Let's go.
For 5 seconds.
Let's go.
Those of you who know me know that I love hip hop. So everybody at the forum, that's why I was waiting. Because I was like, I gotta have the moment because it's the energy. Where else can you get that kind of energy with hip hop, for real? Okay, so thank you for grounding us in Kendrick.
Woo! Yes.
I feel seen. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so in addition to the Kendrick album, y'all know that they just dropped a book, Love Corrections. Raise your hand if you got it, you heard it, you're in it.
Yes.
Okay,
good. Thank y'all.
It's okay, because like after this, you know what I'm saying? Like this will be your opportunity to go get the joint.
Oh yeah, and people are like, I never know that you have a book coming out. I've never done a lot of promotion, so it's always like I slip it out, and it's just like, it's just there. So
okay,
then
Beyonce.
I have to come tell you. No, Beyonce's like, it's out, it's out. I'm like, it's out, don't worry about it, it's no big deal. There's a book, it could help you. I don't know, don't worry about it. So I'm trying to learn. Actually, my team is like, Adrienne, could you tell people you did it? I'm working on it.
All right, so we are going to have the conversation. Y'all see my voice, what I just did there?
You just got so serious.
We dropped us down. Autumn. So the conversation this evening is really about a variety of different kind of politics. And so politics that's deeply connected to a lot of the work that Adrienne has expressed in her book, and that is deeply rooted in the work that Shania helped ground us in, and trying to draw really intentional parallels between the two. I think the reality is that, you know, Pharrell just had this like really dope video that dropped on Instagram that was like, ain't nothing new. You just a comma, homie. You are a comma in the conversation. And so I'd like to think about the work that we're expressing, the work that Adrienne is holding down, the work that many of us are doing, as we're just a long line of commas. And so how can those commas come full circle? What does that look like? Is it linear? Is it non? And how do we continue to hold down the spaces that keep those commas rolling? So the first conversation that I really want to talk about that you really opened the book up in, it's very deep intimacy, and I would say some work around accountability. In particular, this space around folks in community like to do a lot of work with other people and be like, yeah, in community, this is what transformation looks like. You got to do these things. Transform, be a transformer. And the reality is...
Sorry, I was just like, it's so good. It's just so good. Yes.
Okay, I told y'all that I love hip hop, so it's like all in there. The analogies, the metaphors, Adair knows this as well. Okay, so the truth is that there's a lot of transformation that happens in community, and people are constantly using that outwardly. What you talk about in the book is like, can we also do that also in your living room, in your kitchens, with your loved ones, with your parents? You know, is the transformational work, are there parallels there? Do you become a different person, and why? How do you know when you're ready to do that work? Is it important to do both in both spaces, or is there something that is essential just for community? Are there parallels? So can you speak to the part around transformation work happening everywhere?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm always thinking in lineage. So I'm always like, oh, I learned everything. Like if I'm gonna tell you something, it's because I learned it. And one of my teachers was Grace Lee Boggs, who was an Asian American organizer in Detroit. She moved there to be a part of Black movement in Detroit because she was like, this is where the epicenter of change is happening, and I want to partner with that, which feels important to name also in this moment, that sometimes we're the epicenter of where the change is moving. Sometimes it's somewhere else, and we have to be in solidarity, and solidarity meaning we also need to be in the transformation that is led by someone else's pain. But I feel like part of what Grace said was we must transform ourselves to transform the world. And when I first heard that, I was like, no, I don't like that, because I'm perfect. I have a great analysis. I know exactly what needs to change. I developed this analysis with other hardcore, rigorous revolutionaries, and so we know we're right, and what we need to do is change everyone else, right? And then I have to reference Octavia Butler, because she said, all that you touch, you change. But then she threw in this part that I didn't like that much, that was all that you change changes you. And I was like, oh, I think there's a theme emerging from these teachers, which is, I'm gonna have to change. I'm gonna have to keep changing, and maybe even I'm wrong. Maybe even if I was raised inside of a fascist, imperialist, capitalist, colonial project, maybe I can't actually see the whole path. Maybe I can only see what I can see from inside the bubble. Maybe I need to pop that bubble. Maybe I need to transform my own conditions. Maybe I need to take a different kind of responsibility for what's happening around us. And so then bringing it in, I think quickly you start to see, oh, this lives in me. The systems, I think there's a way that we might, because we live in a world that's so about compartmentalization and categorization, we're like, oh, that's over there. We live in a world where people made up borders, and they think that you can have a climate policy in one that doesn't appeal to another, and that we're gonna be okay, that's gonna work. It's okay, China's like really bad on theirs, but we're good. Is it air? Are we talking about water, maybe? Like, is it hurricanes, mountains? Anyway, so you understand this when we think about the actual physical world, but then I think we think when it comes to ideas that we can also compartmentalize, and that if someone has a toxic way of thinking, that can stay outside of us, instead of recognizing it's more like we're fish in water. It's moving all through us all the time. And some of us learn in our own somas, in our bodies, to process the toxicity out, right? And you can feel it when you're around someone where you're like, oh, you're not letting it stick to you. Like it comes in, but you're finding ways to flow it back out. And I think you don't just have to do that once, you have to do that over and over, because you might be like, oh, I got really good at like flowing the racism. I was like, your racism can't touch me, that's your limitation. Oh, your gender, no, you can't make me less of anything because of my vagina, that's your limitation. Oh, all the things, but then I'm like, okay, but now I own a home on land that was stolen from someone, and now I'm in this fight about genocide and land and sovereignty and be in solidarity with Palestine. How do I bring it home? What does it now mean for me to be living on this land, right? And what's right relationship? Not the thing where I'm just like, well, then I should just be homeless, or I should go back to Africa, or I'm like, no, what is the answer? What if I don't know it yet? What if I need to sit with indigenous people in my region and let's have a conversation about what Black and indigenous solidarity looks like? What if I need to let go of something, and the something I need to let go of is knowing the answer? So I keep wanting to invite people to be like, my front line, my interior front lines might be different from your interior front lines. And I think part of what's happened inside of social change work or movement work is we decide there's one front line and everyone's got to hold the same one in the same way. And that smushes the biodiversity of the lessons and the liberation we're actually supposed to be planting, and right? But I always talk about ecosystems. I love the visuals that are here, because I was like, y'all really felt into my heart. But it's ecosystem work. And an ecosystem is only healthy because it's biodiverse, and everything in it is adapting as it is meant to adapt in order to stay in right relationship with everything else. So if you're a man, I need you to be working on a different front line than I will work on related to gender, but it'll work well if we both do our part, right? So, yeah, that's some thoughts on that.
I kept getting drawn to what your hands were doing, like this movement of in and out.
It's a cycle through, babes.
The cycle and the process of, I think, a couple of things. One, all of us are in this journey. We've all started at different places. There's a way in which that I understand pain and have experienced pain and understand the very deep intimacy that's connected to pain experiences. And, my dad and I have always talked about, like, it's a cool thing that, we've been equipped with only a certain set of emotions that we all feel as a way to be able to connect with one another and feel one another.
Wouldn't it be so sad if you could feel sadness and I could only ever feel mad?
Yes.
I wouldn't want to be there, y'all.
Okay, and now I can't help but think about Inside Out.
I know, I was like, do we all see Inside Out too? Okay, because anxiety is my homie.
It's like, and a good friend of mine is like, yeah, but you're always in the war room. Like, anxiety is just like, girl, no, you need to do this, and then you need to do this.
I don't think you thought of all the scenarios. There's more scenarios.
There's no more scenario. There's too many scenarios.
But also, I mean, not to make this, we could do a whole, I keep wanting to go places and just be like, y'all, if you're not going to see it, let me tell you about it. But, because some people are like, I don't watch animated movies. And I'm like, it's beyond all that. But one of the things that I keep saying is, there's an aspect of the movie that is, what do you do if you keep trying to paste one emotion, joy, over everything else and have joy like be the only thing you can experience? And I watched this and I took that personally as a pleasure activist, and I was like, so just don't come for my joy. But then watching this election happen, I want to talk about this very directly, because what I felt happening was the Harris campaign, which, I have a lot of feelings about the practice of handing a black woman the baton at the final leg of the marathon that you've been like fumbling and stumbling and being like, no, she couldn't catch up. Like, why couldn't she win? I'm like, I had thoughts. But I also have thoughts about the campaign language. The feeling of it was joy. We are the joyful people who are not him. And I was like, you can't paste joy over genocide. You can't paste joy over poverty and economic disparity. You can't paste joy over racial disparity that you haven't addressed. You can't paste joy over people who need reparations. You can't joy us out of the thing that we all know is kind of true, and we can't do it, right? I'm like, even if I'm like, I'm down to go with you, girl. Yeah, you black, mixed, sure, let's go. I can't translate that to someone who's like, there's nothing joyful in my life. I'm struggling to keep my head above water. I need you to talk to me like a grown-up. You know how kids are like, so they're like, are you just trying, it's okay, it's gonna be okay. No, it's not, I'm depressed, right? I think in this moment, we're in one of those places where, we can't put the joy over the collective anxiety of living in a nation on the edge of collapse. It's the smart, emotional, collective feeling to be in, is that something is about to change, and we could shape that change, but not if we're not honest about what's happening. So I'm glad you brought that movie up so we could have that moment.
So the takeaway that I hear is that we definitely have joy. Yes. Joy is a core part of how we understand and move through the world.
Yes, and orgasms particularly are a part of how we're going to survive the next 4 years. I know. I know. Auntie said that. Auntie said that. My nibblings are here. But it's also true, and you guys know that. It's a sex-positive household, so there.
You know what? Pleasure Activism is a book.
Oh, yeah. It's a book.
And it's a great read.
Yes, it is.
Got me through COVID. In more ways.
I was like, am I stuck at home? Whatever shall I do? Yeah.
Okay, y'all see how we just like covered it with joy? Y'all saw that? It just swooped in.
Because the problem is not the joy. The problem is trying to transpose and paint things that are actually not. I was like, you can be happy as you, to me, everyone I talk to right now, I'm like, as long as you can acknowledge genocide and colonialism, we can be happy. We can be joyful in this moment. But if you can't acknowledge that, or if you can't acknowledge that you're 20 feet higher up than me, if you can't acknowledge the pay disparity, if you can't acknowledge reality, I'm not going to give you any joy. You haven't earned it.
Process that. I think what is a great segue into what you're talking about is this conversation around Black politic, and specifically FUBU, like for us, by us. And there have been conversations that have happened, most recently, work in the forum, work that we're adjacent to, that's connected to this idea that are our beautiful moments, our beautiful experiences, our beautiful ideas just for us? Do we get to hold them in and can have a container around them because we've experienced harm, we've actively experienced people take them, and use things that demonstrates that one, we're not worthy. It's our ideas aren't worth it, and so there have been conversations around FUBU, which is just like, do we hold it? Is it just for us? And in your book, you talk about beautiful ideas, and you talk about the importance of being able to share them. And we at the forum have been talking about beautiful experiments, shout out to Dr. Squires, and really thinking about how those two things are held. And so I really want to hear your ideas around Black politic in that way. Like, is there space? What do you imagine that looks like? Is it intertwined with this component of transforming ourselves to be able to transform externally?
Yeah, I love this question. It feels complex. So I think there's multiple things happening at the same time, which is always the case. But I think one thing is Blackness was an identity created by people to oppress a bunch of people from a bunch of different places who had a bunch of different gorgeous cultural offerings to make in the world. And I think going through the process of enslavement together made a trauma-generated experience of what Blackness meant. And then I think we've been reclaiming our humanity. And so we've been like, okay, we're gonna shape Blackness. Black is beautiful. Black power. Black love. We're gonna create, and we're gonna make something beautiful of this wound we were given as an identity. So I think that is always beautiful, and I do think it's important to have spaces where we're like, as someone who shares this lineage of pain, we need to come together and alchemize it together into something else. And that something else might no longer need to be held the same way. I always say this, that I can imagine in another 100 years that that's not the way we talk about ourselves or define ourselves, but it'll only be because of the healing work we do in this time around what it means to be Black. At the same time, because it was a false split, right? It was like, oh, y'all Black, and y'all not Black. We're gonna call you Indians, because we're lost. And then y'all are something else, right? It was just this idea of like defining people in a way that actually was not organic or natural to our watersheds, to our ways of being, to our religions, anything. So because of that, the truths that we might come across, they might not actually just be ours. So what I often experience is I'll be in a deep interaction with someone, an Indigenous person. We were in Ireland recently, and I was talking, and I was like, wait, how do you know that? Because that's ours. That's ours, And they were like, well, no, it's what all liberated people land here. All liberated people land in song, in oral tradition, in worship of the womb and the process of creation. All liberated people actually come back to the earth and say, oh, we're supposed to be following these rhythms. And because we were displaced so violently from the places where we knew the songs and the stories and the animals and the traditions, we're having to recreate something. So it's a unique position, but it's not, the wisdom itself may not be unique to us. And I think this, again, I've got to reference Octavia Butler, because she projected Black people into a future in which Blackness was always leading. All of her protagonists were young Black women leading, but what they were leading was humanity towards freedom. And that's how I approach my work, is I'm like, as a Black person, I have the right to be a spiritual leader or a movement leader or a poet or whatever. I have the right to be anything in this world. And it is infused with Blackness because that is the lineage that I carry. And it's not just for me. It's not just for you. There's no human that I meet that I'm like, I don't want you to know this. I'm like, I need you to know this. I actually need you to want to know this. And especially for those who oppress. So especially for white men, especially for light-skinned people, especially for people who have privilege in this world, I'm like, I might not want you to be in the meeting that I'm in generating this. It might not feel safe for you to be in that space with me. But eventually, I do need you to integrate being a human. And there's a pivot. That's the other thing that I think is happening right now, and that's why white people are so mad. That's why the whole globe is moving fascist. There's this pivot happening where it's like the power that y'all established 500 years ago is done. It's done. We know it's done. So now y'all are throwing a tantrum. You can't win this argument at the dinner table. You lost it. We are trans. We are queer. We are Black. We are doing what the hell we want to do. So you know, I can see all these men sitting at their dinner table being like, I need a gun and a Republican, or whatever it is, right? And I'm just like, okay, like, play yourselves out. Do it. And it's not going to be easy. It's going to be harmful. But what's already happened is that people have come out of the colonial shell. And so that makes everyone very scared, who's like, but I benefit from the colonial shell. So I'm like, I need you to reconnect to your humanity. I need you to reconnect to the part of you that feels like you're from the earth. You know, when I see white folks with dreadlocks now and like they're like barefoot and stuff, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, do what you gotta do to get yourself back on earth. Do you know what I'm saying? I'm like, actually stop doing the perms and just get back to the dirt, whatever you need to do, right? It's controversial. Feel your feelings. Feel your feelings, right? But we have to think something new if we want to end up somewhere new. And I think that's one of the things that Black people, because we landed here without a choice, and we made a culture that is so compelling, that's so irresistible, that everywhere in the world you go now, everywhere you go, I have not traveled anywhere where people didn't come up to me and say, Tupac, Beyonce, Kendrick. And I was like, yes, baby.
Oh, yes.
Okay?
Oh,
and I'll
yes.
say, won't he do it? And they'll be like, all the time. And I'm like, okay, we did that. We made that out of blood and sweat and loss. That's what we made it into. So I'm like, everyone can do that. And all these people who have privilege are about to go through their worst time. Okay? So the more privilege you have, the worse this time is about to be. And it might be a few generations of bad. I think some bad is coming. I have to be honest about it. But I think that if everyone integrates what Black people have learned, right, then we have a chance on this earth.
All right. I heard 3 really important things. I will say, because we're practicing intimacy and the power of being able to, in real time, feel your feelings, there were a couple of things I was like,
I don't know, girl. Even I was like that. I was like, girl, how do we feel about this? But you know what? Let's go.
But it's okay, because this is what it means to be a part of the ecosystem, about me being able to have my feelings with my experience and my position that has been really clear on my side of the world, and be able to hold yours too, and simultaneously say, yeah, actually, we are trying to get back to our liberation. We really have been actively trying to consider what our humanity looks like. Is that what we mean when we say Black?
Yeah. Is it? And also, can I say one more thing on this? Because in the same way, the borders are not actually real, right? There's something about race that I keep wrestling with, which is, it's real. It's like culture is real. And we have for me, I'm like, the joy that I experienced this summer, watching Kendrick and Drake go at it. I was like, that is personal. That took a long time to cultivate. Like, the genius of it, the genius of it, I mean, I wouldn't take that away from myself ever. But in the same way as the watersheds, it's like we can't just hold there's no world in which there's going to be a Wakanda that no one tries to break into and take from. So for me, I'm always trying to figure out, like, how do we create something that is our own, that is our dignified place, that is our sovereign place, that doesn't require violence to protect it, and that doesn't even necessarily require exclusion, right? Like, I'm really thinking about this all the time. Like, how could you and I go have a sister moment? And people would never even think to transgress that. They would understand what's happening between us so deeply. In order for that to happen, they need to learn respect. They need to learn to see the dignity and the sovereignty between us. And I think there's something, if we do that only in a hidden place, no one ever sees it. So I think we need the both and. I have spaces that are all black spaces in my life, and they're medicinal. I moved to Detroit and lived there for 12 years because it was the first time I landed there, and I was like, everybody who does everything in here is black? I need to come, like, I was like, so the mayor's black, the city council's black, the librarian's black, the person biking over there, the farmer, everybody black. Okay, I need this experience. This was my, Detroit, I think, is one of our Wakanda pockets. And so I'm like, I think we do need that. There's something medicinal about it, but I don't think we need that to be the goal, because we live on an earth where that is not a reality. Yeah. And I want to lead. I want us to lead, right? I'm like, I don't want us to just lead ourselves. I want everyone on earth to have to take black leadership seriously.
So the main thing that I'm hearing is that it is really important for black folks to consider what actually is the ways in which we're defining blackness, and to consider that the core parts of that are deeply connected to us being liberated, to being free, to being honored and respected, and to be taken seriously. Yeah. And so can that return be something that also looks the exact same in Ireland? Could it also be similar to other places of the earth? And are there specific ways in which we are also honoring the ways in which other folks' humanity that have sincerely considered those same things that are cultural? There's still a rub there that's like, yes, you're right. There's some beautiful things that happened as a result of us being here. Some really, really important cultural ways of knowing and being that are central, some dope fly things that could never be taken away from us. And so honoring all of it, acknowledging all of it. Yeah. So it's just quick to the audience. As y'all know, there are questions that are happening live. So if you see me look down, I'm looking at questions that are coming in. And so I'm going to start adding it in because I see that there are juicy things and scrolling and people in the back sending this way. So I want to just acknowledge some of the things that people are sharing and saying. Okay. So one of the questions is, as you look into the movement and the work to maintain an adaptable and sustainable movement ecosystem,
yes,
chunky.
I was like, I recognize that language.
What areas do you think we have been neglecting, part one, and need to nourish for our collective well-being and survival?
It's actually tender to talk about this. I have so much heartbreak around movement. I think one of the places we have not tended is our boundaries with capitalism and philanthropy. I think that we recognized, we were like, there's capitalism afoot. Like, we know we don't want funders to drive what we're doing, to drive our missions. We say that to each other. We rail about it. And then we all slowly become workers for philanthropy, where we spend a lot of our time writing reports and grants and reports and grants and reports and grants. I was like, is this what I came to movement? I was knocking on doors. I was talking to people. I was listening to what they needed, and I was doing something. But now this is what I do. And I say that as someone who was an executive director. I participated in the game. And then even as a facilitator, I got out, but I was like, I'm still reliant. Like, the stream still needs to flow to me as a facilitator. Like, otherwise, y'all gotta pay me. So, And so now, now as a writer, I'm a little step outside of it, but that's one of the biggest things. And right now, I think if we're looking at, like, why are we losing? How have we had a year of genocides in Palestine, Sudan, the Congo? How is what's happening in Haiti? How are these things happening? And we have so much power and analysis, and we love each other, and we did strategies, but we're not able to. This whole year has been so humbling. It has literally been like someone just being like, you don't have the power. We're going to kill everybody we want to kill, and you don't have the power to stop it. And I'm like, but I spent my whole life working to build this power, and I know that I was doing excellent work, and I know I was surrounded by other people doing excellent work. So what happened? And every time I follow that thread, what happened was philanthropy kept slowly, subtly moving us off course, changing who we were listening to as the source of our direction. And so then we end up in this little pocket where we all know the language with each other, right? We're talking about liberal, neoliberal, hetero, okay? And then candidates come along who are like, you broke. I can fix that. And we're like, no, he doesn't know how to fix it. He's bankrupt. But it doesn't matter because we were in our bubble and we lost track of how to talk to anyone who wasn't a donor that we were trying to get to give us money, right? So I think that's a big thing. And I want to talk about it as often as possible and as bravely as possible, because now I am outside of that system. I'm not the boss of anything. So I can say it, and then you can be like, Adrienne said that, and you can be the boss of something. You can take it back and be like, Adrienne said it. So that's one thing. I think the second thing is we forgot about the people. And I think it's very easy to do that as a field professionalizes, which, I mean, it's such a beautiful thing to think about. Like, generations ago, our folks couldn't do what we do. They couldn't be like, this is my job. My job is to organize my people, to show up and to support my people. But we forgot that the people were a big part of that. And so we have developed ways of being with each other where, in order to even talk to us, you already have to basically have an internalized, perfect glossary of all the terms and conditions, right? You have to show up fully formed in your feminism, fully formed in your allyship of everything, right? But that's not how people show up to movement. And I keep saying I was politicized before social media. So for me, I'm like, I used to put my foot in my mouth every day. And then someone would come and be like, oh, Adrienne, what you just said was harmful in this way. Or the thing that you're trying to do, that actually leads us backwards because of this, this, and that. I was loved into having a good analysis that was accountable to people who were not me and who had less than I had, who had less time than I had, who had less resource than I had. But that's who I'm supposed to always be in service to. My orientation was always like, okay, I'm not oriented towards the people who have more than me and who are trying to control. I'm oriented towards the people who need me, right? And all of us, if we all orient that way, eventually the people who have the most need end up at the center of our circles and the center of our work. So I think we've lost that. And I hope that what we can internalize from this electoral, political, genocidal moment is we have to turn back towards the most impacted people, and we have to figure out how to reorient our movement to put them at the center, or else we will never win. We will never be able to appeal to all the folks that need us. We won't be able to give them what they need. I'm trying to think if there's anything else there. I think that's good for now. I've got a lot I could say, but I'm going to write a book about it.
I think that's important. I think, as a nonprofit,
Yes.
the forum receives funding.
Yes.
Our funders are in the room.
Hi, funders. Yes, I was talking about you. Sorry, I said it so you didn't have to.
Okay. I think it's a conversation that's important, primarily because there's a lot that's there. Yes. There's a lot that's around how do you acknowledge that capitalism exists everywhere? How do we have those kind of conversations with the people who actually need the thing? And how do we continue to do what you say? Because most all foundations, folks that fund things, say that the center of all of it is to support the people that have the most need.
Yes.
So if that is true, what does that look like? Is there reform and transformation that also needs to happen in philanthropy to continue to honor the humanity of the people that we want at the center? And what could that look like? Is it something different?
Yeah.
And particularly,
Yeah.
is there something even more juicy around are the folks everywhere, but since we're talking about philanthropy, doing that work, this thing that we were doing earlier?
This thing. Well, and I'll say one thing that we've been experimenting with my project is we're calling it non-extractive funding. I think we will emerge the language because I don't like to ever root myself in a non or a no, but I like to root myself in a post and a pro and a towards. So, but what we've been talking about, any funder who wants to work with us right now, our standard is this has to be a non-extractive exchange. So I'm doing work. You see what I'm doing. If you think it's dope, give me that money. I don't have a team, I don't have 14 lawyers who are gonna go, no, I don't have that. So if you need that, if you want a corporate entity to do that, then you should go give them your money. But you know what I do, and here's what it is. And we have found, some people have not, stayed and played with us, but the ones who have, we have much more authentic relationships because I'm like, you wanna do good. Me too. Let's do that. And who benefits from this cycle of me writing over and over and over, and I'm doing what I'm doing. Let me do my work. Let her cook, as Glorilla said. Let her cook.
Let her cook. Okay. They're coming in hot now, guys. Okay. Let's just go right for the jugular.
Okay.
Are you afraid of loss? I know we've experienced it, but as a Black person, we know that a true revolution means loss. How do we get past the fear of losing our lives, culture, and, quote, the wound identity?
Ooh. Ooh. Yes, I'm terrified. As a Black woman, as a queer woman, as a fat, disabled woman, I have all this life that I have structured that really works now. I have children in my life that I deeply love. I have all the things that they say make you less radical as you get older, because you're like, well, now I got stuff. That was real cute when I was 23. I'm also terrified of a different level of loss. As someone who's been working on climate my whole adult life, I regularly have breathless, crying experiences for all the species that we're losing, and understanding that we could be one of those species, like that humans are not inevitable, and each decision we make to harm the earth makes us less possible. And so I feel this huge chasmic? Let's go. We need new language. We need new words. Chasmic. I feel this huge chasmic grief, okay? And it feels like anticipatory grief, but it also feels like, if you think of a chasm, it's actually like a thing I could get over, but I don't know how. Like right now, I'm like, I would need to fly to get over from here where we are right now, and what humans are deciding to do and how we're treating each other, to this other place. I would have to fly to get past how some Black men still look at me and talk to me and talk about my love and talk about my family and talk about trans people I'm like, how do we get there? So it's not even afraid. I'm like, I just feel loss is happening to us. And the thing that helps me is grief practices. My friend Malkia Devich Cyril is an important teacher for me. Mac is a Black radical revolutionary who, her wife, she fell in love, and she actually met this person 20 years before in college, and they hated each other. And then they reconnected 20 years later and felt instantly deeply in love. And they got married, and on their right after their first wedding anniversary, found out that her wife Alana had metastatic cancer, and so fast she was gone. And Malkia talks about grief, that if movements in particular, if we don't figure out how to be with grief and how to create grief rituals, then our people aren't going to be able to go through the amount of loss that is inevitable. Because I think some people will turn and be like, I'm excited to experiment with giving up my car or giving up living alone and living more collectively or whatever else you think we might have to give up here. Some people are interested. Most people are not. Even most people in movement, I see they talk about that. But in terms of what we practice, you know, most of us couldn't, I mean, like, and I say this not wearing a mask, but I'm like, most of us couldn't even put on a mask for the sake of protecting the collective, right? And I don't say that to shame anyone. I just say the culture, we couldn't sustain the culture of protecting our folks, losing the privilege of not having the mask on or whatever, right? So that's just where we are. Collectively, most of us are not ready to give up anything. And so when we're not ready to give up anything, it has to be taken. And if it has to be taken, then we have to prepare ourselves for that, you know, like, oh, I don't want to fall over when the support gets taken out from under me. Part of what I'm doing in Durham, where I live now, is I'm starting to build community explicitly thinking about the collapse of everything. So I have a set of people who come and we sit in my living room and we just talk about preparation. And we get very, like, because there's this Detroit organizer named General Baker who has since passed. He used to say, we're always thinking, how do we go and find the people? How do we get the people to come here? He says, what we need to do is be prepared for when they come, because they're gonna come. And I keep thinking like that. I'm like, even if you're not ready, it doesn't matter. The hurricane is gonna come up the mountain and get you, right? As it just did in Asheville, right? The bomb is gonna cross over to Lebanon, right? There's no place that we can go that's going to be safe from what is coming. So what we want to do is be the kind of people who are safe within ourselves and safe in our relationships that people move towards in crisis. In Asheville, the folks who've been practicing mutual aid with each other and thinking about survival and had some food stored up, those are the folks that everyone turned towards. They were like, oh, I can either move towards you or that guy with a gun who's holding down the gas station and saying, I can't get any gas. He's clearly not my people. But you're saying, come here, I've got food for you, I've got supplies. We need to be those kind of people. So that's one thing, is get yourself ready to be the kind of people who folks come to. And the second thing is get yourself into regular grief rituals. I'm sure you have something to grieve right now today. And I'm sure you're not giving it enough time. The majority of you are not giving it enough time. And it might be something small, right? You might think it's too small to matter given all the loss in the world. But if it's yours, then that's what the universe gave you to grieve. And so it's your work to do, right? And more will come. And also, we're all going to die, which I think, I don't know, I have found this very comforting lately. My sister and I have been talking about this, but like, I think sometimes the way we live our lives is as if we are going to change everything for ourselves and it's all about us, instead of there's ideas from the beginning of time that will go to the end of time, whatever human time is. And as long as we live, it's our job to, as quickly as we can, learn the best ideas and proliferate them to as many people as we can reach, as deeply as we can, and then let go, because we're going to die. No? Toni Morrison changes my life every day still. She's gone. Octavia changes my life every day still. She's gone. I can't grieve without Nina Simone and Whitney Houston. They're not here anymore. But they did their grief work. They did. Whitney, I mean, I literally am like, when I think about what she sacrificed and what she let come through her and what it cost her, but she did her work as a grief-based person. She let herself weep. She let us see how hard it was for her to sing at the end, but she didn't stop singing. There's many ways to do this, right? And yours might be breaking in front of others, or yours might be holding someone else, or yours might be sitting quietly at an altar and praying for all of us, right? But do that grief work. Remember you're going to die, and act accordingly.
Yeah. I'm actually thinking about my therapist in this moment. She'd be proud. For real, for a
Yay.
couple of reasons. One, because she always says that grief is a portal, and that it goes back, whatever you're not grieving currently, there's 25,000 other things that are attached to the thing that you're choosing not to grieve. And so I was like, really? Like, what does that look like, you know? And she was like, did somebody ever steal your bike? Like, when someone stole your, like, what was activated? Like, that feeling of loss. And there's a story about a bike, like, my parents know. Okay, because we have a little time. So, somebody stole my little sister's bike. For real. Brand new bikes, Kmart on Lake Street. Oh, like I remember tassels, everything. It was amazing.
Do you know what colors it was?
Purple. It was a magna. What was that? Magenta?
Magenta and purple?
No, not the color. It was a bike name.
Oh.
Magna? Was it a Magna? Y'all know what I'm saying? It was in silver letters, diagonal. Yes, it was fuchsia. I remember it like yesterday. But the reason why stealing that bike was so important to my life and my grief process is because my little sister was born with a terminal illness. And so it was her first time coming out of the hospital. And so I remember the importance of how important it was for her because she didn't ever get to learn how to ride a bike. And so this moment of like, we got new bikes, you out the hospital, it's our time. Like, we about to go right around. And so the idea of someone taking that moment from her, that critical moment that for whatever reason they stole the bike. And so I have those feelings, those memories, that the relationship to death and the relationship to immorality and the relationship to joy and how all of that was combined and circling in that moment for me as a child. And so as an adult, holding on to those memories, it's still there. Those portals are still relevant. And so even this moment is an active process of me releasing that grief because I've done the work. And being able to openly share it as a form of being able to say that we have our stuff, and that we are capable, once we do this, to hold that space for other people. So, my therapist will be so proud.
Do you want to share your sister's name?
Yes. Shout out to my parents, too. Her name was Arissa, and she just died 4 years ago.
Ashe, Arissa.
Yes.
Ashe.
Ashe.
Thank you for thank you for letting us have some of her.
Yeah. Didn't know that was going to happen, but it happened. That's what this does.
These are your parents right here?
These are my parents, yes.
Thanks, y'all. Thank you. Sorry for your loss.
Wow. Okay, so I think as some of the questions were scrolling, there were these really important questions around tools. You know, like, what do you do? How do you do the thing? Everybody's talking about the stuff. What's the stuff? How do you do it? And I wanna outwardly say this to the people that are asking those questions. It's literally happening right now. Yeah. Like, we are literally
This is it?
doing the work of demonstrating what it's like to be in right relationship. You heard me say, I don't agree with a lot of the things that you're saying. Yes. They don't sit well with me. Yes. They don't honor the parts of me that feel true, and also both and. I hear you. I can hold that. I can see that. You were in Ireland? I ain't never been to Ireland. What is that like?
You gotta come.
Huh.
They love blackness there. In Ireland, they're not like the Irish people that came to the U.S. and like got caught up in their whiteness thing, you know? In Ireland, like, they don't really identify as white. They identify as Irish. They're like, I'm Gaelic. I'm like in this part. This is my, like, I'm from Roundstone. Like, this is my, you know?
And I have experienced that. Like, in Croatia, I remember them being like, what's white?
Yes, exactly. They're
We
like,
ain't white.
we didn't make that up and we don't do that.
That's not what we're doing over here. So all of this to say, the tools or the practice of being in conversation and demonstrating the importance of deep intimacy and vulnerably talking about your parts in a way that honor not only your humanity and what you're about, but then being able to do that enough times that then you can see that in other people and hold both. Because you're right, we're not on this earth alone. Like, what, we gonna walk around in our little huddles? Like, that's just not, I mean, maybe.
Well, we've been trying that.
We
and
have
it
been
hasn't
trying
quite
that.
been working.
Right.
Right? So I think there's something, there was a lie that was told to black people, separate but equal. And the lie in it is, if you have everything and you have no intention of letting go of it, then equal can never happen, right? And I keep thinking about that I'm like, I don't want separate but equal. I want sovereign and all shared, right? And then I'm like, I can do whatever I want to do culturally, and I can only spend time with black people. But if I happen to leave that enclave, right, and go to Home Depot, I don't have to deal with somebody mistreating me, or I don't have to deal with someone, the police showing up and killing me while I make tea, or whatever things that I'm like, that would never happen to a white woman. And we just know that. And we just have to walk around knowing that all the time and not able to stop it. I'm like, no, I want to know and be able to stop it and repair whatever was wounded in you that makes you do that to me. It's no longer me, right? Like, I think that's the thing for black people too. Like, mostly the repair is not something we have to do within ourselves. It's something, I'm like, we need folks who hate us to repair themselves. We just need to keep loving ourselves up and growing ourselves up, and we do that.
So one of the questions that I think is connected to that, so if it's solidarity, parts of your book we're talking about, a new majority. Is there a new majority? Is there a new democracy? Is it the reclamation of something? Is it the transformation of something new? Can you do a new thing? Do we even actually understand what the definition of democracy is? Has it been perverted? Has it been tainted? And how do we reclaim, alter, redefine, reestablish? Is it a re? Is it a post? What is it? What do you say to that?
I don't know right now. Honestly, I have known very solidly at times in my life. Right now, I think we need to be asking ourselves what we're up for. And there's a group called Movement Generation that I learn a lot from and I reference a lot, and I'm excited. I do a column called Murmurations for Yes Magazine, and they just agreed to partner and do the next year of it because they've got so much wisdom. But one of the things they teach me is that economy means the management of home. And we're in this process right now where we don't understand economy as like, oh, we all have to participate in the management of home. So we think of economy as like, how do I go out and like fight gladiator style until I win enough to feed my family? And so then everyone is my enemy in that scenario. I have a sense that that's not right. I have a sense that management of home is about finding and producing harmony, producing a sense of enoughness. I think redefining what enoughness is. I think in the US we have a very distorted idea of what it's going to take to have enough, which is supported by the economy we currently have to participate in, where you have to kind of be wealthy to even keep your head above water, which is a dysfunctional economy. And then we disrespect the people who are in service, who might actually have enough and have jobs that give them dignity, but because of the way we treat that job, it becomes not enough, right? So I'm really curious about all of that. And I'm also really curious about what the global, like right now, most of how we do our economy is still the act of manipulation and theft of everyone else's resources in the whole world. And so I'm really interested in the global restructuring of all that and what it looks like, even if only Africa is like, no more. And some nations are already doing this. If you're paying attention, it's really been exciting. There's places that are like, no queen, no, none of y'all, no. we're not playing with anything that has to do with y'all in the West anymore. And I'm like, go off, kings. I love it. So I'm really interested in what happens if Africa alone is able to set a new process for themselves of saying, we're not going to play your game anymore. And we're going to take our resources off your market, right? What that does to economy, what that does to what we in the U.S. think of as our wealth, right? Our wealth is oil from the Middle East, gemstones and metals from Africa, technology materials from Africa, and everything else from everywhere else. Food, every single bite we eat, almost everything we eat is grown somewhere else other than the cows that we have manipulated into mass production here. I mean, it's just like we don't, we have an abundant earth here in the U.S., but we don't treat it as such, and we don't live off of what's here. I'm really interested in what happens, because I think right now the U.S. is losing global respect so quickly. Like, to go out, I'm like, let me put the Canada patch on my bag, because I'm traveling internationally, But, it's just that we're losing respect so quickly. And I think that opens up a lot of possibility, right? Going from superpower to something that is like, oh, we just have to figure out how to live with what we have in right relationship and right trade relationship with other people managing with what they have. And I think, that thing that there's a map of the map of the earth that we look at all the time is so distorted. And actually, like, all of the U.S. and all of the South America, China, everything, all of that fits into Africa, If we actually saw the map as it was, we would have a different sense of ourselves. I think we're heading in that direction. I think that's part of it. Again, I don't know, right? I'm really curious. I hope that there's still some kind of internet or way to be in communication with each other as all of this unfolds. I recently joined Blue Sky, and I joined, what's the other one, Spill or something. I keep joining all these things. So I'm like, I still want to be in touch with people, even though I suspect that my life is going to get more and more local, and that all of us are going to be more and more local, and our relationships are going to have to be like, can I walk to you? Can I bike to you? How can I swim to you? Like, I need to be able to just get to you, I don't think we're going to be able to travel as much. I think the end of the fossil fuel economy is coming again, regardless. So I'm really curious. I feel mostly curious about what's coming, and I think the collapse of the U.S. As we know it, right, is an inevitable part of that we have to think about. Okay, if we're not a superpower, how do we be human? What does a global citizen look like?
I think what I'm hearing is there's a lot of consistency and through lines. There's a grieving of our global. There's a grieving of our individual. There's a collective solidarity that's going to be required, while also being conscious of the fact that we're going to have to focus very internally on us and the people that are around us. And a part of me feels like that's okay. And it has to be okay right now.
And you can find satisfaction there. I just want to say that. It's really satisfying to like be in a relationship with a person that you actually know. I would promise you can't satisfy people online who don't like you. I have tried. I don't know how to be more likable. It's just not possible. I don't want to be liked anymore. I don't care. You're a bot in Russia. I don't know. So in real life, you can be in real relationships with people, and if they don't like something that you do, you can be like, good, let's not be friends. Or, good, how can I grow? And then when you grow, it's so dope. Like when you like look at someone, you're like, did we just have a good fight? I know how to fight. Like, it's so exciting to know how to fight. It's so exciting to know how to be like, I don't want to go to your party. It's so exciting to be like, I don't think we're friends. Actually, I just want to be acquaintances with you. I said that to someone. It was so exciting. And I was like, we're not friends, girl. I don't want to tell you my business. It's great. It's like, you're a sieve. I'm not telling you anything. But for whatever reason it is, it's just so satisfying to be in real relationships with real people and be like, oh, the job is not to become an influencer or celebrity of these people. Like when you're around real people, you're just like, you're either a person or you're not. Do you know how to be a person with other people? James Boggs said that. Grace's husband, a black labor organizer, he's like, you're nobody until you're somebody to a bunch of other somebodies. And I'm like, that means that's local work. That's relational work. And I really have felt this as, as I've watched my own profile online go up. I'm like, I only want to do memes for that part. I'm not giving anything else there, right? I'm like, I want to talk to, when my heart is broken, I don't want to go pour it into an internet that doesn't care about me. I want to come tell somebody who's like, well, let me tell you about my sister. Okay, tell me what broke your heart. I want to hear about it. And then like we can cry together, and then we can go eat something. It's just so much more satisfying.
Okay, as an introverted Virgo, let me just say
yes, and also being an introverted Virgo, I'm the same.
See?
I want to be in my house by myself, but right, girl, see the Florida, the ancestors did that. They were like, get an introverted Virgo in the house, because I don't like people. Like, I love humanity, I love life, but like,
I feel so seen right now because
I want to sit in my house. I want to read my books. I'm in the bath, and I'm in the bath. I'm busy. People are always like, I know you're so busy. I'm like, I just don't want to do people. I don't want to do meetings. I don't want to do any meetings ever. If I never had a meeting again, I would be free. I'm just like, I don't want to do that. Like, when COVID was happening, it was like, you just have to stay home. I was like,
we get to be in the crib?
like, just in my house by myself? I mean, I still get chills sometimes when I think about how joyful that period was for me. Because then nobody expected you to, like, come everywhere. And D Nice was just like, here's your party that you can have by yourself in your house. Oh, my God.
No, for real. With my, 600 followers on Instagram, I'd be like, yes, I don't care. And it's great.
Yes.
And it's great. It's great to be able to, as two people sitting on a stage, to actively say, no, I'm not an extrovert.
Yeah.
It's like really good social skills.
I'm not an extrovert.
No.
Are you an extrovert and an introvert? Do you do a little bit of both?
Well, right now I'm actively doing that.
Because I'm like, you put me on a stage, I'll
great.
handle all of you. But like, if all of you try to come talk to me at the coffee shop,
oh no, it's
a
over.
problem. We're gonna have a problem. Like, the third person, I'm gonna be like, I'm drinking coffee. I'm trying to write a book. Like, I don't know how people do writing in coffee shops. It amazes me. But I do want to say this. Because you know me. When I like someone, when I do want to spend time with someone, the discernment, the feeling of that, like, there's people I'm like, I never get enough time with that person. And in my whole life, no matter how many minutes pile up, I will never get enough time with that person. I'll never get enough, right? And when I see them, I'm just like, you exist? Oh my God, you just exist. It's so great. So I'm like, I think a lot of people actually could be more like that if the quality of their relationships was better, right? So I think that there's a lot of like small talk and a lot of like, I don't know, there's a lot of stuff that I'm like, you're not in a real relationship, and so you're not actually enjoying all of this. You're performing a lot. But again, therapy, spend some time with it. Because I think the more the more you get to be authentically yourself, whether you're extrovert, introvert, whatever it is, the more it's authentically, like, you are going to die. Figure out how you want to spend your time and spend it that way with the people you want to spend it with. If your work like drives you, change your field of labor. Like, find people that you want to spend your precious, miraculous waking life with, and only spend it with them. Like, really do that. And if they're blood relations and they have fucked up politics, then have those conversations, okay? But once, twice a year. Then get back to the people you really enjoy being around and spend your life loving. I mean, like, I think our purpose on earth is to love each other. I think we're supposed to be loving, and that you can't do that in fake engagements.
I think this is full circle because this is the correction. This is the correction. This is saying, like, yep, we've been talking about grief. We've been talking about vulnerability. We've been talking about honoring the humanity of ourselves as individuals and others, making room, making space. We're talking about that spaces like philanthropy or other spaces are not exempt from that kind of shedding and re-energizing and recircling, shifting, moving, recentering. We're all a part of that. more specifically in our space, thinking about that maybe we don't know what a new democracy looks like. Maybe we don't know what the newness looks like yet. Maybe we haven't done enough of the things yet. Maybe we have some really great ideas. Maybe we have the curiosity to explore, consider, tap down, dig, pull some things up, and examine. And maybe these are the kinds of conversations that you and I are having actively right now that can prompt others. And those of you that are already doing it, like we're not gonna act like, we're the only ones doing it. There are a lot of people doing this.
At least 3 people here are up to it.
There are people doing this work. And so I just wanna say, in honor of everybody's time, and also in honor of, I thought someone was saying something. And also in honor of the conversation that you and I just had publicly in front of everybody. Can everybody just give it up for Adrienne?
And for Gabrielle. I mean, that was incredible.